Good evening, race fans, and welcome back here to the CIL, the Collegiate iRacing League, here presented by NextBookIt. And we got a special one for you here tonight from deep in the depths of Florida. It's Sebring, and we're bringing it to you at night. Joining me up in the booth is Josh Crane and John D. Price. Guys, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. How you doing, man? Good to see you guys. And now we're tonight at Sebring International Raceway, a very famous track that everybody knows well, at least in the IMSA and even previously in the WEC series. And it's going to be quite a race tonight, obviously at night, as you can see on your screen already. So these guys have an extra challenge factored in here for them in the alumni and the student championship. And Josh, I'm looking forward to this one a lot, man.
Yeah, exactly. We don't always get to go night racing, but we're doing it here at Sebring at night. It feels a little bit like the 12 hours conclusion of that exciting race. But we're here. We have the GT3 and GTE cars, and a points battle is in store for the students. The Worcester Polytechnic Institute leading the way, followed by Illinois and Virginia. And guys, it's close all the way through there. WPI and Illinois separated just by 4 points, and then only a handful of points separating Virginia, IUPUI, USC, and Embry-Riddle. So going to have some developments over this race and the final race in 2 weeks. And then the alumni as well, a similar story, just a few points separating Texas A&M and San Diego State at the top. And then St. Louis University and the University of Texas at Arlington are going to battle for that final podium spot for the championship here at the end. So got a couple battles all up and down the scoring tower. And it looks like we're going to have a little bit of Florida humidity this race. Looks like 77 degrees and a little bit cloudy. And John, what does that mean for these guys and their grip and downforce?
Well, that's one of the unique things about the 12 hours of Sebring is that since it starts, I think, I forget what time it starts during the day, but you race all night through into the morning. And so the track conditions change over time. And obviously a lot of that's run during night where you experience a significantly cooler track. So I think track temp tonight's somewhere in the 80 to 79 degree region. And that tends to offer quite a bit of grip on what is a very bumpy but very flat circuit. So this is in central Florida, down right in the heart of it. And it is one of the flattest areas in the country. And this track absolutely shows that there is virtually no camber in any of these corners. And some guys have a hard time kind of finding their way in the night, especially Mario Andretti even got lost on this course back when he raced on it. So it's a tricky course to find your way around. A lot of the corners look very similar as well. I'm thinking about turn 7 and turn 10. I know drivers that I've coached have gotten lost and confused at which corner was which because it's very easy to get confused. But anyways, it's for the cars, it's going to be a bit of a challenge tonight in terms of the bumpy track. You have to change your damping strategy quite a bit from the tracks that we've run so far this season, such as Suzuka and Road America are smooth as butter compared to this track. This track is like running your fingers over the teeth of a comb or something like that. It's going to throw the cars up and down. 0.7 miles of this track are concrete. The rest is asphalt, 3.75 miles in total and 17 turns. So as these students head out there for qualifying, it's going to be tricky, and we'll see how they manage in qualifying at the minimum.
Yeah, we know that airport runways can be abrasive surfaces. They're built for airplanes, and that's very helpful. However, we see that the Ullman Straight, as well as the front stretch where the start-finish line is going to have those abrasive areas, as well as Sunset Bend. That's the final turn. Is going to be tough as we see some negotiations there in the shared qualifying. And you see where those concrete surfaces are. It's going to be bumpy, really bumpy, John, as you mentioned, and it's going to wear these tires out. A lot of grip. It's going to stick, but it's going to wear these tires out, and we've seen it in different places along real racing, and we've also seen it, John, if you have been to the Formula competition at the Lincoln Airfield. It is a similar effect there as well.
Yeah, a track that you and I are probably both pretty familiar with, and raced at a couple other concrete venues and old airports and such. And it's amazing that it's amazing what the surface has to offer in terms of grip levels. But man, it's a challenge when you get the car upset. A little bit understeer, a little bit of oversteer can turn into a lot of either of those once you kind of get the cars balanced upset in mid-corner. But overall, it's going to be an interesting night. And so now we're on board with Alexander Klenk for WPI University as he's getting set to, I think, start his qualifying run here. So he's running down into turn 17, Sunset Bend, and this is where the concrete blocks start on the track, and it's going to carry us onto the main straight, and then through turn 1, it's all concrete bend. So all the way out there to the exit in turn 17, and now he's going to cross the start-finish straight, and his time will start now. And underneath the Corvette Bridge, turn 1, fast turn in, is going to be just a dab of brakes, down a couple gears, and then get it nice and tight to that wall. He's a little bit off the wall there, and giving it up a little bit of space there on the exit. He could run a little bit wider a little bit earlier, but then between the 2 and the 3 cones for turn 3, get it turned in, go flat on the throttle again, takes a lot of curb there for turn 4 and into turn 5, kind of a late trail brake, get on top of that apex and get to the throttle as early as you can, and then hug the inside corner here as we go through Big Bend, going down towards turn 7, the tightest corner on the track, the hairpin, looking for that 4-cone marker there on the left side, hard on the brakes at that point, all the way down to first gear, get it turned in, and then open the steering as fast as you can, get back on the throttle, then up through the gears, and just a few more corners separates us from turn 7 to turn 10. Pretty easy corners here, just trying to focus on where the braking zone needs to be for turn 10. Then again, at the 3-cone, hard on the brakes, down to second gear for this corner, early turn in, don't use quite all of the exit on the run out there, and then keep it tight for these left-handers setting up for turn 13. Easy to get confused here, because it looks a lot like turn 10 at the 2-cone. We're going to hit the brakes and turn in second gear, and then use all of the exit there. I really like the maneuver there for Clank. That was a great line through there. And then through Bishop's, a pretty challenging fast section. You're going to set up for turns 15 and then 16, which is going to lead us on the back straight down to third gear for turn 15. Runs a little bit wide, but actually that's kind of the right line. Then takes advantage of that concrete there on the outside for turn 16. Really opens up the entrance, and then takes a lot of curb on the exit, running down towards what I think is probably that most challenging corner on this track, and I don't think too many would disagree with that, down to Sunset Bend, turn 17. So going to get the car straightened up, do a lot of the braking early, and then trail off the brake later into the corner. Get it tight there right as you meet up with the wall, and then squeeze the throttle gently to propel yourself out of the exit. It's super easy to get off in that corner, screw up the entry, screw up the exit, just get the car in the wrong position, but Clank, absolute masterclass so far, and he's got the fastest time as students are starting to finally cross the start-finish line and put up their times.
Yeah, you saw it there, and I don't think I can argue, John. Sunset Bend is the final turn. I think it's the hardest. Most of the time I find myself facing the wrong way. It's in that turn. Actually, usually at the exit of that turn, and it is so bumpy. You saw it there as we followed on board with Clank. If you looked out the windshield, you'd see the scenery bouncing up and down, and we see the cars bounce up and down here, and also in real life. It's just a nature of the track, and that's something that's going to separate the different levels of talent that we see here tonight. So really solid play from these guys, and yeah, time starting to come in. Looks like Nate Olson from the University of Illinois leading the charge right now. Alexander Clank has his previous lap, I guess to say that's Sean Campbell, sets a 2-minute 1:72, so we'll see if a pole sitter can break that 2-minute mark. But it is going to be Campbell, Olson, Clank, Matthew Norberg holding in your top 4 right now, and not separated by much, guys, except actually 68 thousandths of a second. Nate Olson to Sean Campbell. That's Randolph leading the University of Illinois. Nate Olson.
Yeah, Sean Campbell's come in this league and really shown a lot of speed in his chosen GTE car, and he's been putting up amazing lap times week in and week out, stealing a couple pole positions and even a couple wins, I think, recently. So he won the last race out at Road America and picked up a podium, I think, the week before. So he's had a great time so far in this series, and for Randolph Community College, they've got a pretty strong opening debut into the CIL, and as you said, he sits on the top right now in the student league. And in the alumni, we haven't really talked about them too much. We've just got some familiar faces back in there. Jeremy Rogers at the top with that 155.599, and then Derek Ekmanis for San Diego State, and Ted Burns for Wisconsin, 2 and 3, and quite a decent ways actually off of Jeremy Rogers' time. Jeremy was really having some luck with the setup around here and really kind of got it nailed down for that C8R machine that he's driving. And he's actually about half a tenth faster on that track, or on that lap, excuse me, than the actual GTLM track record from this year's 12-hour Sebring. So these cars are pretty much right on pace with where they should be versus the real life cars, but a couple guys kind of struggling in that GTE field. But if there's a track that I expect the guys to struggle at, it was this one. This is probably the most challenging track on the calendar just because it's such a unique setup. Lewis Hamilton talked about this track's bumpiness at one point when they went to Circuit of the Americas in 2019. He called that the most bumpy circuit in the world, and Anthony Davidson very quickly reminded him that Sebring exists, and Dakota has no stake in that challenge. Sebring will always be known for its bumpiness.
Indeed, it will. And still, we see Sean Campbell just above that 2-minute mark, leading qualifying, about 3 minutes to go. And, I was talking to Sean a little bit before this race, actually picking what car he wanted to use. They were a little bit different. He was trying to play with different setups and talking about strategy. And if we end up talking to Sean after the race, maybe we'll catch his thoughts on what his strategy was and what he chose to spend the next hour doing. But to hear him talk about it, pretty pragmatic, very thoughtful, giving thought to the opening stages of the race as well as the midsection and the end, and talking really especially about the opening and the start, and what it would mean to be in clean air, dirty air, and what car would perform, even if he had could achieve the same lap times in, say, for instance, the Lamborghini versus the so the McLaren is not with us tonight, but the AMG Mercedes, for instance, that would be something to consider based on where you can pass, where the strengths of the car are, what you need in the corners, whether it's aerodynamic grip or mechanical grip from these guys. So very interesting to hear what he's thinking about pre-race, and it looks like that it's coming to fruition here in qualifying, guys. Not too much longer, and he will be our pole sitter.
Yeah, and Josh, you mentioned about things you need and taking care of that. And I tell you what, who does that is NextBookIt.com, the sponsor here of the CIL. So we'll hear from them, and we'll get you right back for the starting grid here at Sebring. So as you just saw right there, NextBook connects book lovers with each other to buy and sell their books, from textbooks to fiction and really everything in between. For every account that is created with the code CIL 2021, that's CIL 2021, NextBookIt is going to put $5 toward the CIL Scholarship Fund, which gets redistributed to the drivers if they need a track, if they need a car, and you can check them on out. And on your screen now you see 5 of our graduates from the CIL. And Josh, how cool is that we're able to see these guys off, especially with all these degrees that are in front of us?
Absolutely fantastic. Fadenhauer, Clank, Sherwood, Bowie, and Walker, all staples of our group here, and being able to graduate. We talk about these guys are doing things more than just racing. They're getting out there, making a difference, bettering themselves in the world around them. So that's awesome, and that's what we set out to encourage when we said, let's put these two worlds together: sim racing and the education experience, college experience, and sticking it to your rivals. And these guys have been doing just that. Fadenhauer, Clank, Maximilian Bui from USC, Avery Walker from Virginia, Colby Sherwood, the lone computer science and engineering crew member there. Colby Sherwood from the Ohio State University. And they really don't like it if you forget that first article there. And then Cody Fadenhauer, mechanical engineer from VCU. And Alexander Clank tonight, we're going to see him probably up front, an aerospace engineer doing the tough work from WPI. Guys, these guys are going on to big things.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only big things in real life, they still have a championship to fight for here. And you just mentioned Alexander Clank. He's been pretty much at the top of that GT3 students point list pretty much all season long. And with Sean D. Campbell's late entrance into the series, he's looking good to steal that championship on his way out as a student before he makes that transition over to being in the alumni category and joining the likes of Jeremy Rogers and Ted Burns. And very much looking forward to see him do that. But for now, he's got the third place time in qualifying, 2/10 behind Nate Olson, who is about a tenth off of Sean Campbell. So Sean Campbell, I think he's pretty much done with his laps. I've got a checkered flag out for qualifying. So on the tower, it looks like that is your official qualifying standings.
So a couple
Correct. I
drivers
think
still wrapping up their lap. It looks like Michael Kolich has just brought it into the pits, and that will conclude the qualifying round here at Sebring. And let's get ready to rock and roll. Let's take you on through the grid, brought to you by NextBookIt. Out on your screen right now, you'll notice the red slash next to the position. That's signifying an alumni driver, a driver in the GTE field, and the green slash represents a student driver. They'll note them in the GT3 cars. So Jeremy Rogers rolls off first here tonight, right on his outside from San Diego State. Derek Ekmanis, both those drivers with onboard cameras. We'll see them throughout the night. Theodore Burns from Wisconsin will roll off third here tonight. Carl Lemkool from St. Louis University. He's in the full motion rig, and we got an in-car camera of that as well. We'll be sure to check that out as they go through the final turn, those big bumps. Alexandre Pacini from Santa Maria Federale Universidad in fifth, and Rahul Bolanini from Michigan Tech rolling off sixth. Nick Trollman in the 000 will start in seventh. Sean D. Campbell from Randolph Community College, the first of your students, rolling off in eighth. Nate Olson from Illinois rolls off ninth here tonight, and Alexander Klink from WPI, your points leader, in 10th. Michael Koholich from Angelo State rolls off in 11th, and Sean Valendia from UCLA rolling off in 12th. Continuing on down your grid, Matthew Norberg from NC State will roll off 13th here tonight. Nathan Kuhl from Bemidji State in 14th. Cohen Evans from IUPUI will start in 15th. Thomas Toomey in the 66 machine starts 16th, representing the University of Virginia. Pay attention to Toomey here tonight. He might make his way up through the field. Alex Jensen from Embry-Riddle will start in 17th. Esteban Munoz, the first of our FIU drivers, starting in 18th. His teammate Luis Diaz from FIU as well, starting in 19th. And Sam Roslansky, our other Wisconsin driver, in 20th. Gavin Keithley from Minnesota Twin Cities rolls off 21st. And Jamie Lawrence from San Diego State in 22nd. Scott Ratliff from Pittsburgh State will start 23rd, and that's not the Pittsburgh you're thinking of in Pennsylvania. That's Pittsburgh all the way down in Kansas. Jared Kaler from UNC Charlotte starting in 24th here tonight, and rounding out our field is Nick Beaver from North Dakota State University. Go Bison in 25th. Guys?
Yeah, it looks like we got a couple cars starting out of position as far as I would consider them to be. You already talked about Thomas Toomey for Virginia, kind of starting towards the middle of the student field, and I think I agree with you, Jared. I definitely expect to see him to move up the ranking orders as this race progresses on, but he's generally a pretty patient driver. I remember I was stuck behind him in the St. Jude's charity race a few weekends ago and having a real hard time passing him because he was able to defend very well, but he's also very clean. So definitely going to be watching to see him move up. A couple other names out there too. Jared Kaler going to be starting from the back of the GT3 field, and Nick Beaver as well back there. So looking for both those guys to have a good race tonight.
Yeah, John, I think you stole my answer there as I was looking here at the qualifying results. I don't know what happened. It's not hard to have issues and throw away both laps, especially at this track. But Jared Kaler, Nick Beaver, guys, we expect to have pace, and they generally do, starting in the rearward positions tonight. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. They'll drive up, and we'll see, what progress they can make throughout this race. So you can see here getting the field split. That's going to be your GTE cars, a little bit faster pace as they get their tires warmed up and ready to go. And then you'll see the GT3 cars behind them giving a little space so they come up on the green flag, making sure all these groups of cars, these drivers, have room to battle amongst themselves when we go green.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, just getting set up now for the start, trying to get a little bit of temperature in the brakes, a little bit of temperature in the tires, and get them up to pressure as they'll start a little bit low on pressure on purpose. So as the tires build energy and build heat, that pressure builds inside of the tire to the point at about 2 to 3 laps in, that's actually at about the optimum pressure, and then it maintains that for the rest of the race. But this is what these guys have to focus on now, becoming somewhat of what Martin Brundle calls an F1 heat management engineers, trying to keep the engine cool, but the brakes hot, the tires hot, and make sure that the gearbox is all figured out and good to go and can get to every gear. And these guys setting up for a race like this can be a little bit anxious too sometimes. You're starting at a pack of really fast guys all around you. You don't want to make any mistakes. You don't want to take somebody else out. So that itself can induce some guys to start locking up brakes, or maybe even braking a little bit earlier, and making some opportunities open up later down in the field for some overtakes on lap 1, especially down to turn 1 and turn 3. And then the exit of turn 5, I'm going to be watching very closely, seeing who gets a great exit out of that corner and runs it down to turn 7, Sunset Bend. Or sorry, actually that is the hairpin at turn 7, which is probably the best overtaking opportunity on this entire circuit. And I don't think there's too many guys that would disagree with that one. And Jeremy Rogers is going to have his mirrors full of Derek Manis and Ted Burns running down to that.
Indeed, he will. And guys have just finished the qualifying laps, hot laps, if you will, and now they have to contend with traffic and remember their situation. You can see Gavin Keithley, technical issues starting from the pits now. Jarrett, bring us the race start.
Jeremy Rogers going to lead the alumni down here. You see the Porsche pace car flying around that corner. We'll take that hard right-hand turn on the pit road. Green flag in the air, and we're off here at Sebring. Jeremy Rogers with a good little jump. He's going to jump to that preferred line. Here comes Ted Burns right with him.
That's right down into turn 1. Ted Burns behind from the University of Wisconsin, San Diego State into an early P3, followed by St. Louis University. Right there looks like one GTE. Can't see if that's Michigan Tech or Santa Maria Federal. That is a Ferrari GTE car. Back we are now with the GT3s crossing the start-finish line. Alexander Klenk looking to make a move inside. Look like Sean Campbell out front. There's Sean Valandia right there from UCLA. A couple of guys trying to battle. You see those numbers illuminated on the car. They'll update every time around the start-finish line.
Yeah, Alexander Klenk absolutely nailed Nate Olson down into turn 1. Nate did not defend early enough, and Klenk just slid it up the inside, was able to get the power down pretty well on the exit. That's one of the other features of turn 1 is it's pretty easy to not get the greatest exit out of that corner depending on where you hit certain bumps. It can throw the car in particular directions, and it looked like Klenk just sort of took advantage of a little bobble that Nate Olson had and was able to capitalize on that. So that's going to insert him into second position. Now he's got Sean D. Campbell to hunt after him. He's been in this position many a time so far this season, and I'm hoping for a good race up here at the front. These GT3 cars have been great for close battles throughout the season, and so definitely looking for these two Mercedes up the front to have a nice little battle. But actually, as I say that, Nate Olson not letting Alexander Klenk get away with that one so quickly.
He is not. The University of Illinois in the 21 machine continues to fight. They'll have a little bit of a draft now as they go around through these couple different corners. Big transition here. You want to be smooth. There is grip, but not too much of a surplus as the car is transferring a lot of weight. You see Illinois tries to hook, and now WPI will hook a wheel, try to get a little bit of grip back onto the long straight. This is the Ullman straight we talked about. And again, having a little bit of draft. But John, I don't know, as he's trying to break the draft, I don't know if he's close enough.
Yeah, I don't know if he is, but it's not the longest of runs down to turn 17. You really got to nail the exit out of turn 16 to make it possible. But one of the unique things about this track is that turn 17, you can take a different line into it pretty much every time, and it'll still work out for you. It's not exactly crucial to nail the line. Big wreck behind. That looks like Sean Valandia in the wall for UCLA.
UCLA, Sean Blandy, and he will tow and take that car to pit lane. But yeah, just saw him get out in that grass, guys. And yeah, just you can see a couple bounces right there. Tried to keep that car straight. John, sometimes you mentioned opening up the steering. Well, it wasn't quite an option there, and that was the result. So tough move for UCLA, but he'll be able to use that faster pair and will be back on track.
Yeah, so unfortunate for UCLA, but we still got a good race on our hands. So now we're on with the GTE cars up towards the front, watching Jamie Lawrence right now, who almost always chooses to start from the back of the field, and you might think that he's doing that for a bit of a challenge, but he's trying to be polite, if anything, and let the guys behind have let the guys in front not have a slow car, because he doesn't do a lot of practice on this track. But overall, that was Derek Ekmanis we're looking at, as I can get my eyesight trained in on that tower on the left-hand side. You see Derek Ekmanis is number 3 illuminated there on the tower, signifying that that is the car we are indeed looking at, trying to hunt down the Ferrari driven by Ted Burns from Wisconsin. So Jamie Lawrence is actually up to 5th and started at the back of the field along with Scott Ratliff and Nathan Kuhl. But Jamie Lawrence did choose not to do a qualifying lap, as I was just talking about, because he does not have a lot of practice on this track, and so he chooses to use the first few laps to kind of feel out the track and kind of get an idea of where he can overtake, and then he starts to push later on the race. And even with that strategy, he's come up with a few wins this season and is looking still pretty good in the points championship, just a few points behind Jeremy Rogers from A&M, and I'm sure by the end of this race, Jamie's going to be challenging him.
Yeah, we know that Jamie gets his car under himself, and then we see him in that top 5, top 3 towards the end of the race. You can see the laps as those drivers come across there. A little bit of a big lap for Carl Lemkool there. I think he had some trouble coming onto the Ullman straight. But as we follow Jamie Lawrence now, yeah, he's just closing that gap a little bit to Rahul Bolanini from Michigan Tech University. Lawrence himself from San Diego State University. Looks like a car around on the front stretch. It's a Mercedes from Embry-Riddle University. It's Alex Jensen, who was just around on the front stretch, looking like we just saw. Yeah, just gets a little bit loose, gets out into the bumps, and meets the grass there.
Yeah, that's something I'm thinking that the GT3 cars are a little bit more prone to rather than the GTE cars. The GTE cars, if you throw them on a bump, when they land, they will land weird, but these GT3 cars over these bumps at Sebring are seeming to struggle a little bit more than the GTE cars, so that might be a little bit of a damping issue. They do not have the advantage of super sophisticated dampers like the alumni have in this race. They are only two-way dampers, so they can only control raw bump and raw rebound adjustments. So that's how fast the shot compresses and how fast it extends. While the alumni actually get the advantage of having 4 or 5-way shocks where they can actually adjust what the behavior is over bumps and then what the behavior is in just general body motion. So it really helps for a track like Sebring to have a really sophisticated damper like that. But now we're watching Illinois on the back of Alexander Klenk, just 3/10 off the bumper. Has been on his bumper pretty much half this lap so far, and nailed him down at the start, did Alex Klenk, but Nate Olson still trying to fight back position. If he can get a good run out of here at turn 16, he'll be set up in a great position for nailing him down into turn 17 and onto the main straight.
Yeah, and as you say that, maybe a little bit of a wiggle and a good exit for the car in front, so maybe not this time by. But Nate Olson not giving Alexander Klenk any breathing room, and I'll tell you who loves that is Sean Campbell from Randolph, leading this one by about 2.5 seconds. John, if you're Nate Olson, do you just follow and save a little bit of fuel? And it looks like Nathan Kuhl, actually, from Bemidji State, has also taken that car to pit road. Looks like, yep, Sunset Bend. So, John, you mentioned it at the beginning. Sunset Bend will be the difficult one this evening. And it looks like he just grabbed another corner. Yeah, so I think he probably knocked the toe out, had trouble getting it back, and had to get out of harm's way there first and foremost. So, couple tough notes from these guys. Following on now, Cohen Evans in the lone BMW, trying to make a move. A little bit of loose there. That's Esteban Munoz from FIU. And looks like Cohen Evans a little bit wide there in that run, but coming down through Big Bend, and they'll go down into the hairpin. John, are we going to see a braking move?
Yeah, we'll see if he looks to the inside here, or if Esteban defends. He chooses to do a nice early defense. We'll see if Cohen Evans can't slot up around the outside, but it's a pretty tight, difficult place for that to happen at. And actually, he may lose a position here to the following Mercedes. That's going to be, I think, Nick Beaver getting involved on this action right now. But yeah, Esteban getting really loose there on the entrance to turn 3. He may be considering a brake bias change after that one. Looks like Cohen Evans looking inside, and I think this is going to be turn 10 that we're entering right now, but nothing doing there. Esteban able to hang on to the spot for the time being, but with Nick Beaver closing in fast, these guys are going to have a 3-way battle on their hands as we head down to the back half of the lap, going through turn 13 right now, heading down towards Bishop's Bend.
Yeah, poor Nick Beaver has the pace to get in with these guys, but it's a little bit early to be sticking our nose in, being a little bit too aggressive, so good patience from that North Dakota State driver there. As we go through this section, it is a 3-car train. Not really room to get up alongside your opponent, but we'll see something here. Who can get the best exit onto Ullman Straight coming out of Le Mans? That big power in that Mercedes is going to have an advantage here as we go down. You can see guys in the draft trying to break the draft, especially if you're in the middle, John. What do you do?
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do if I'm in the middle, and it's not what Jamie Lawrence just executed. I've got Jamie Lawrence in the wall. It looks like it's kind of earlier on in the lap, but that might be around turn 4 or so. So we'll take a look and see what happened here. So he's up alongside Rahul Bolaneni. It looks like they just touched front right wheel to rear left wheel, and that sends Jamie into the wall going around turn 3 and about to enter turn 4. So a lot of damage on the front end of that Porsche. It is an overtaking opportunity, but it's a difficult one with as wide as these cars are. It's a lot easier if you're in something like an MX-5 Cup car to try to slide it up the inside there. But as we come back to this battle, the positions have not changed as of yet. Still Munoz up Evans and then Nick Beaver behind, 4/10 separating each of these cars approximately, and Munoz not going to have to defend as aggressively this time, I would say, heading down into the hairpin. He's got enough of a gap between himself and Cohen Evans. Cohen Evans still sticking his nose out to the inside, letting me know he's there, but if Cohen Evans really thought he would have pace, you'd be seeing him on the headlights flashing at him, letting him know that he's going to send it into one of these corners so he can get around him.
Well, we're going to see here. He's going to try a couple of moves. Esteban going to try to wonder where he's going to go. Down into the corner, under heavy braking. He'll let the Lamborghini go. Not an opportunity for him that time. But we continue on with the lap. And guys, Nick Beaver just waiting for these two possibly to take themselves off track and get 2 easy ones.
Yeah, that's possible too. And, you know, one strategy that that Cohen can try to implement here is just to get right up underneath that bumper and not go for the move. That's one of the ways you can kind of play mind games with guys in racing, is if it looks like you have the opportunity to go for the overtake, but you don't make any obvious signs of trying to do so. I know, Josh, we were just talking before the race about a certain move made by a Porsche 911 GT3R driver at Nürburgring this year, and how he just kind of had the opportunity to take it and wait until that opportunity popped up to finally take it. And Cohen Evans, with him sticking his nose out there a lot and kind of trying to get out of the draft of that car, might be letting Esteban Munoz know a little bit too soon that he's trying to make that overtake. So might try to see if he's going to tuck in a little bit tighter underneath that wing and kind of wait for that opportunity to really present itself before diving down there.
Yeah, I wonder if he's really trying to make a move, or if he's just trying to defend from Nick Beaver, who is relentless in that 3rd place, has not missed a beat up to this point. But, John, as you mentioned, going around, as it looks like Esteban Munoz sideways through there. These 2 cars are through, but Esteban Munoz in the Lamborghini now trying to get that car turned around. Maybe a little bit of overcorrection there.
No, so the bumps on the inside of turn 1 are what did that one. If you stayed that tight, that long on the corner, that's what the result will be. We saw it in LMP 2, I think, this year at the actual Le Mans, or sorry, at the actual Sebring, and luckily didn't take out Cohen or Nick Beaver at that stage. He got very lucky to split both those cars and slide back across the track, but a lot of damage to that FIU Lamborghini, so he's going to need to use that fast repair.
Yeah, and Nick Beaver, you mentioned it was in a tough spot for that one. I think he, just calculated, made it through, aim for where the car is, and when you get there, they won't be in that spot. I think that was his strategy there, but looks like this battle, maybe the P2 and P3 cars have sorted themselves out and agreed to truce just long enough to catch Sean Campbell, because that 2.5-second lead, that's now down to about 7 or 8 tenths. So they are coming, guys. Might have a little race on our hands.
Yeah, I was just looking at that, Josh, and I noticed that gap had significantly shortened between Sean and Alex. But so far on this lap, Alex has been having to defend from a very aggressive Nate Olson behind. So he's losing a little bit of time to Sean Campbell on this lap. But I haven't seen them on the radio as of yet, so I don't know if they're trying to arrange a situation where they can stay together and just sort of hunt down Sean and stay with him at least until the pit stops start to come through. But for now, it's looking like Sean Campbell up the front, Alexander Klenk in second, with Nate Olson very close behind in that Lamborghini.
And as you say that purple lap time of 2 minutes 7 from Sean Campbell, that's going to be his fastest lap of the race. So he is feeling the burn. Those 2 guys using all the track there. That Nate Olson machine from Illinois going to be your leading Lamborghini. And in a field of surplus of Lamborghinis, we're being led by 2 AMG Mercedes. We know that the tire wear is important for them, something to watch. On board and following now, Jeremy Rogers from Texas A&M University, leading your alumni field with a little bit of an advantage over Ted Burns from the University of Wisconsin. And Derek Ekmanis also hanging out in there.
Yeah, Derek Ekmanis for San Diego State. I think Ted Burns got around Derek a lap or two ago, so Ted Burns has been promoted up to second place for the time being, and Carl Lemkel sort of settled into a rhythm as well, running there in seventh in the alumni. Scott Ratliff and Nathan Kuhl both having to take early pit stop options and kind of regather their car. Jamie Lawrence actually not too far behind either of Carl or Alexandre Pacini from Santa Maria Federale. But yeah, Jeremy Rogers absolutely controlling this lead right now up the front, just barely edging out a gap every lap, although that was about a second he pulled out over Ted. On that last lap, he did a 56.6 and Ted did a 57.6. And as far as race pace, that's still pretty quick up there at the front. We just saw Sean Campbell a lap or two ago set the fastest lap of the race for the GT3 cars, and that was a 2:07 lap. And Josh, I'll throw a name at you. Patrick Long, this year at Sebring in the GT3R, the 911 that is soon to come to iRacing, did a 2:08 second lap in the race, and that was the fastest lap time for that category of car. So Sean, already faster than the real guys.
Well, Sean, no stranger to speed, and as you guys just saw there, Carl Lemkuhl from St. Louis University in that Corvette getting certainly rattled around here. That was the motion rig that you saw, plugs in and supported here in our software. Built it himself with an open source kit, and you saw it there, guys. He's got the VR, he's got the wheel, now he's got the motion rig, and this is certainly the track to have it. He's feeling every one of these bumps through his seat.
Yeah, absolutely. Not the track I would choose to try this out for the first time on. I might pick a bit smoother circuit or something like that, or maybe an oval even. That would give an interesting sensation with the banking from that. But right now I'm watching Ted Burns trying to fend off Derek Ekmanis on my strain. He's got some traffic to contend with in that battle as well. This is the first time this season we've really seen the use of the headlight flashers get overused, if anything, but I don't really think there's such thing as overuse. That's no really harm, no foul with the headlights. But Ted Burns was all over the headlights trying to get, I think it might have been Esteban Munoz out of the way. Obviously in different classes, the alumni in slightly faster cars running about 5 to 6 seconds a lap faster than the GT3 cars. So now as we cross into lap 9, we're seeing some of those cars that have had instance earlier on in the race get overtaken by these lead GTE cars. So the purple lights on in the Porsche for Derek Ekmanis, giving a little bit of lighting there in the cockpit. Bit of a lockup in front for Ted Burns into turn 3. Both guys choosing to take a lot of curb there on turn 4. Generally a curve you don't want to be really on top of, but then you got to nail this exit again onto turn 5 through Big Bend and down towards turn 7, the hairpin. Derek Ekmanis too far back to really make a move. At this point, we'll see Ted Burns work his way over to the left side, trying to open up that corner during the braking point. You actually see the 2 green dots on the side of Ted Burns' car illuminated. That signifies he's in second position. Derek's going to have 3 green dots, and of course Jimmy Rogers up the front will have 1 green dot. I think that was something they introduced back in about 2009 or 2010 over in Europe, and they since adopted that for the American series, and I gotta say it kind of works. It's very helpful information on the side of the cars, but Ted Burns trying to catch down and run down Jeremy Rogers, not having a lot of luck at the moment.
Yeah, I'll tell you who's had a touch of luck is Nate Olson, the University of Illinois. I just watched him slide by Alexander Plank from WPI on my second monitor. Guys, it was a tough move. He just put it in there, and it was a team effort. Power moves only down into the first turn. John, you mentioned it. It's fast, just a touch of brake. Made it stick on the end, used all the track, even fought back a little bit, but had just enough in that kink to be on the inside and battled all the way out. You see this sequence here. And yeah, it looks like that Lamborghini hanging on. Actually, down in the Big Bend, it looks like Clank maybe made that back. So this is the replay, but we'll see maybe under braking if the University of Illinois comes back. So tucked up in, yeah, he'll show his move early and go down into the final turn here.
Yeah, so that was a wonderful defense from Clank, actually. He'd already kind of given up a lot of the space that he needed going into turn 1, but then he sort of undercut him on the exit and was able to slide it back up the inside of turn 3. And at that point, going side by side through turn 3, 4, and 5, you're always going to be better off if you can be on the inside of turn 5, because the track just sort of falls away in terms of grip level on the outsides of that circuit. So this was the move again down into turn 1. Nate Olson taking that really tight line there, and Alexander Clank on the outside. And actually, no, this was the move where it actually got done. So Nate Olson able to hang on to that inside line and then steal it away from him, really down into turn 3 definitively. Then through turn 4, turn 5, and he's got that nail and pretty much done with. We'll see if he can extend the gap. It looked like he had a lot of pace. See how much that bump in the middle of Sunset's upsetting the front of that car. It was bouncing all over the place. But about a 2-second gap to hunt down to Sean Campbell up in front, which, you know, considering that these guys have been battling, is pretty promising for me in terms of lap times.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see how that gap closes in the coming up laps. But I'll tell you what I liked following along with that move for the extent about a lap and a half. We followed up to it because it built up. And John, you mentioned it, and even in that Nürburgring event earlier today, it was a setup. And these passes, these races are always developing. And, you know, one pass that you might look for is we have Carl Lemkool around, it looks like, in the Corvette for St. Louis University. You know, these passes are set up laps or, you know, laps in advance. So really, really solid play from Nate Olson. And you can bet that Clank is now in third place taking notes. We follow on with Lemkool here. Looks like he gets in just a touch, maybe a brake bias, not quite where he expected, but was able to stand in the gas actually and keep his car off of his competitors.
Yeah, back to that GT3 move. That has implications in the student points. Illinois is trailing Worcester Polytechnic, so that's Nate Olson trailing Alexander Clank by just 4 points in the Students' Championship at the moment. And while I don't think this would be enough to put him back on top, it would be enough to probably get him within a point of striking distance going into the last race of the season. And these guys do get one drop race, as we've talked about so many times before, so their worst performance will not count towards their total point standings, and that occurs for all drivers, no matter how many races you have done. So if you have 5 first place finishes and then a second place, that second place still gets dropped, and it just counts your first 5. But that really helps if guys have to miss a race. Maybe they have a final on the night of the test, because reminder, these guys are students and they're trying to work in times to practice on this track in between study schedules. And with guys graduating now, though, maybe they've got a little bit more time free up while they start searching for jobs, such as in the case of Alexander Clank.
There you have it. You see Nate Olson in a little bit of clean air, running that nether purple lap, 2 minutes 7. John, you mentioned the points. If they were to finish now, P2, P3 in this order, Illinois would be just 1 point behind WPI for that championship lead, putting them within striking distance for the final race in 2 weeks. So it will be something to watch. These are 2 of the best going at it, and we're going to follow this one all night long, understand how they can come together and how that gap can close down to Sean Campbell. Looks like it's about a second right now.
Yeah, about a second away, and it looks like it's been closing fairly steadily. So now we're watching Ted Burns down into Sunset Bend underneath the bridge, still with Derek Egmanis on his bumper. See just how much the bumps on this track are upsetting even GTE cars that have the advantage of that 4-way damper system that I talked about earlier. And now down in turn 1, get right up next to that wall. I love that. Using all of the track. He paid for all of it. He's going to use all of it. And then right out there on the exit curb again. That Porsche is really close behind. We're seeing Derek Egmanis really start to come into his own in that Porsche. He's struggled for pace a little bit at certain tracks in the past, but it seems like Sebring's really working for him.
You know, John, I think the Porsche might like this track. I ran a few laps last night in the RSR, and it felt pretty nimble, and it was able to be so late on the brakes. And even some of my mistakes I was able to cover up with the brakes and the agility of that car, whereas I don't think in the Corvette I would have received the same treatment. So Derek Egmanis certainly taking his talent and putting it on a seriously fast platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're back with Alexander Clank and Sean Campbell still leading this GT3 field. Nate Olson tight behind, so that gap now at the front of the field is 4/10, separating all these 3 cars. So this is 1, 2, and 3 in your student league so far. Sean Campbell now going to have to start defending from Nate Olson this lap. I would bet he closed about actually a full second based on that, with Alexander Clank sending the fastest lap of the race so far on that last lap, obviously with the advantage of the toe from Nate Olson, especially down that long back stretch is going to pick up probably an extra 2 to 3 miles an hour going down into turn 17 Sunset Bend, which actually makes the braking zone even a little bit more difficult, especially when you got a car in front of you. You send a lot of dirty air over the nose of it. But down to hairpin, looks like everybody's safe in their positions for the time being. But yeah, I can't wait to see what this battle holds for us in the future.
Yeah, exactly, and I'll keep you on your toes, John. If the University of Illinois were to take the lead in this one and relegate Randolph to second place and third place to WPI, Illinois would be leading the point championship going into the final race by 3 points. So that is as they run. You see those glowing red rotors trying to get that Mercedes slowed down. These cars and these drivers working just as hard.
Yeah, so Jarrett, we're about, I don't know, 23 minutes into this race, almost approaching halfway point. Pit stops are starting to become an option for some of these guys. Do you think we'll see anybody take any alternative strategies or just kind of carry it through the end of the race?
You know, week in and week out, we talk about what are their pit strategies going to be. Is someone going to do the undercut? Is someone going to do the overcut? And really, we've seen everyone just kind of follow the leader, so to speak. When Sean D. Campbell comes, Nate Olson and Alexander Klenk will come, or maybe the next lap we'll see the two of them come. So I would expect we see a majority of the field come around the 35 to 45 minute mark is what we've seen. Right around that 40-minute mark for the GTEs and right around that 45-minute mark for the GT3. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see guys run it dry, come down, get a fuel to the end, and then race to the end. So pay attention to these leaders, especially Campbell, Olson, and Klenk. If they all three come in on the same lap, or if one maybe waits a lap or tries to go a lap earlier. It looks like a little action here. Jamie Lawrence going to interfere in a little bit of this battle.
Yeah, so San Diego State trying to work their way through the GT3 traffic. You can see just how much larger that Porsche looks as compared to the GT3 cars around, and kind of helping to spot that car in that battle as well. The Porsche's always been kind of a tall car in comparison to some of the other cars in these sorts of categories. But yeah, he's going to make his way probably on the inside of the Illinois car, I would have thought, into the hairpin. But no, Illinois is actually going to be very nice and give him the position going into the corner. So Josh, that's something we've talked about a little bit. What do you expect the car in front to sort of do as you get into a corner when you're in a multi-class field like this? And you know, I talked to a lot of guys about this, and I think the general strategy is you expect the car in front to sort of stay on their line, whatever that line for that particular car is, and then it's your responsibility to get around. But in that instance, we saw the Illinois machine sort of get out of Jamie Lawrence's way down into the hairpin. Which do you tend to prefer when you're on a track with multiple cars like this?
Well, I do prefer the driver in front to be predictable, but I'll tell you exactly why. Because as a racer, if I'm in P3 and I have the ability to follow that GTE through a hole, I am going to send it as far as I can. So we know as you ride on board with Jamie Lawrence now, looks like he has made it through safely, and the top three GT3s also survived. Yeah, I can guarantee you that the University of Illinois went low almost as a defense. So because if he does that, then the GT3 behind him cannot pass, especially on the outside of the hairpin. We would not expect that. So just a little bit of clever defense, frankly, from Illinois. It took me a minute to figure it out because I also wondered, John, why is he going on the inside? That makes it harder for everybody. But no, I think that was a clever move there from the University of Illinois, and everybody lived to tell the story.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I didn't think of that at first, but now that you're saying it back to me, that actually makes a lot of sense. And actually down into Sunset Bend last time around, he was literally right on the bumper of Sean Campbell, maybe even a tiny amount of bumper contact, but nothing upsetting either of the cars. So those guys at the front of the GT3 field still fighting it out. Now we're looking at Ted Burns and Derek Ekmanis on our screens right now, fighting for the final podium positions in the alumni category. Ted Burns in second, Derek Ekmanis in that Porsche in third, just 0.2 or so off the bumper of that Ferrari. We'll see how these bumps treat the Porsche's front end. Not too bad, but granted, the rear end of the car is really what's loaded up the most as you go through that, really starting to get on the gas. You see how just much he's closing in the draft, actually getting out of the throttle a little bit, might be trying to save a little bit of fuel. We're seeing from the San Diego State machine. Jarrett, we just talked about sort of overcuts and undercuts on the pit stop strategy, and I think it was last week at Rowan America, we did see a successful undercut strategy by one of the GT3 cars, and I wonder if Derek Ekmanis can replicate that tonight.
Yeah, that'll be one to watch, and I'm just following some of these battles. We've got a gallon of them around the track. University of Illinois not letting up on Sean Campbell, and I've been trying to figure out, is he pushing hard to stay with him? Does he want to think about trying to pit, get some clean air, and do some type of pit strategy? But Jared, I think you said it. I think that these guys are evenly matched enough that they're going to come down pit road and they're just going to try to see who can save fuel, who can spend the least time in the pits and make that pass in the pits. That'll be something to watch for. And then same thing, I don't know how hard Derek Ekmanis is pushing that car against Ted Burns there for P2, but that'll be something to see if he is able to save some fuel or if he feels like he's got some extra pace to perform an undercut. But nonetheless, the top three now through turn one, and guys, very consistent. Actually, a little bit of gravel there from P3, but guys, really consistent in this battle. It's been going on for what must be 20 of the last 29 minutes there.
Yeah, one of the guys that's actually positioned himself pretty well in this race is actually Michael Kaholich, as we see Matthew Norberg and Cohen Evans just behind in the BMW. So that's going to be NC State having to defend from IUPUI down into, it looks like turn 4 or 5 for me. Kind of difficult to tell. Again, some of the corners looking the same on this track, but yeah, now they're coming through Big Bend and going down towards turn 7, the hairpin. So another 3/10 gap between these two guys for 6th position that Norberg is in right now. Heavy on the brakes down to turn 7 and take a little bit of curve there. And let's see if he takes the nice line over the exit, and he does, sticking 2 tires in the dirt, making sure he can get that steering wheel as straight as possible, as early as possible, and actually managed to open up a gap between Cohen Evans and himself through that last corner. Maybe Cohen had a little bit of a bobble coming through that corner. It is a very challenging one, maybe not quite so much as Sunset Bend, but still a tricky one nonetheless. And now we're looking at Thomas Toomey, about 10 seconds behind Michael Kaholich. I expected him to actually have a little bit more pace tonight, but maybe that setup's not quite right in that Lamborghini. And Jarrett, Josh, if there's a track that needs the correct setup for it, it's going to be Sebring.
Yeah, that's true. There's so much to deal with here. There's parts of downforce, parts of mechanical grip, and bumps. You mentioned the bumps and the suspension limitations depending on your car type. So you want to have that thing hooked up. So see there, Nate Olson actually up to a 7/10 gap on Sean Campbell. So is he saving tires or fuel? Not sure. But those guys continue to run in line. Alexander Clank, maybe giving a little space, maybe deciding, hey, it's not time to use up my equipment and get back past. A strategy can also be just to make the other guy get around you, make him use all that fuel, and then at the pit stop, maybe you have a little opportunity too. So all these guys, only they know what their car is doing and what their plans are. But I think you mentioned it, John, that some of these guys running a really strong race. Jared Kaler, we saw, started at the back, moved his way up through the field. Cohen Evans, another strong run, trying to get around Norberg. I think we got all these guys this evening trying to do a lot of different things there.
Yeah, exactly. And back to the Clink thing for just a moment there. We've probably got about 15 minutes until the end of the pit window. And in that time, if Clink can save enough fuel to go at least one extra lap longer as compared to this guy, or compared to the guys in front, that means that he's going to have to take in probably a full gallon less of fuel at the pit stop, which is going to translate to maybe a second and a half or so in the pit stop. So that could be pretty advantageous. So I'm wondering if he's starting to adapt his strategy, and if he's going to do it, now's the time to do it. Any later than this, and he won't be able to save enough fuel to get to the pit stop and go longer on that one lap. But if he starts now, I think he could probably save enough fuel. I've looked at the GTE's fuel consumption earlier on. It's about 9/10 of a gallon. It's a pretty long lap, 3.7 miles. Not quite as long as the 4 miles of Road America, but still not the greatest for fuel consumption. There's a lot of time spent at full throttle. It's well over 70% for this track, such is its nature. But yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what Clank does at the pit stop.
Yeah, John, that is a great question. Where around Sebring can I save fuel? There's a lot of long straightaways. We know that you can lift a little bit early. Can I lift and coast through some of the S's around here, throw off my balance of the car?
Yeah, great question. They do have a couple tools in the cockpit that they can use to help them save fuel as well. So they will have different engine maps. I think it's 3 different engine maps in the GT3 cars and as many as 9 or 10 in the GTE cars. And it's tricky sometimes. You got to be careful with it. You don't want to save at the wrong place. But you talked about lifting and coasting into the braking zone. So when we're talking about maybe braking for the hairpin, there's a bridge maybe 200 meters or so before the corner. So some guys would maybe use that as a target and brake at that at the 4 cones, or sorry, even the 3 cones, but actually lift off the gas well before that, maybe back at the bridge. So there's probably a good 200 and 250 meters of off throttle time. So that's going to help save fuel, and obviously running that lower engine map, especially through some of the slower portions of the track, such as these that we're watching Derek Ekmanis battle Ted Burns through right now, turns 3, 4, and 5. You can use one of those lower engine maps, and then out of turn 5, switch back to the other one and use the fuel to accelerate yourself down to the straight, and then maybe switch back to the other fuel map as you sort of top out in the gears there. So, if you're making a lot of cockpit adjustments, it's easy to get kind of confused and sort of lose place on track, but it will really make the difference in the long run.
Well, we do see every once in a while drivers that are quite busy in the cockpit. Looks like we're going to follow on board with Jamie Lawrence, San Diego State, in the other Porsche, Derek Ekmanis teammate. Looks like he just grabbed a bit of grass. He might have even kept it off the wall. We see him locked down right there, back on his way, no issue. But a little bit of a slide there for Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah, and Jamie doing something that we always recommend people do when they start to have a spin like that, and that is hold the brakes. You have no idea, for all you listeners out there, how many times that you'll see a car in front of you spinning on track, and if they hold the brakes, they'll take a predictable trajectory, but if they don't, they'll start to come back across the track, and that's when accidents happen. So Jamie holding the brakes there and actually helped him out quite a bit too, and able to keep it out of the wall. So now we're watching Jeremy Rogers right now going through Sunset Bend. There he is on your screen, a tall man, barely fits into most race cars. He's coming in for an early pit stop, 35 minutes in, it looks like.
Guys, and I don't know if you noticed, but on that straightaway before the final corner, he's tinkering with the steering wheel. So Jeremy Rogers might be doing a little bit of what you were just talking about, John, playing with that engine map, trying to get as much out of the car as he can. He's going to head down pit lane, the first of the leaders here tonight.
Yeah, one other thing he actually might be doing is a very clever strategy, and that is adjusting your brake bias specifically for the pit box. It's very crucial you nail your marks into the pit lane and then are able to nail your marks onto your pit box, and you need to adjust the brake bias to really do that effectively. So, Jeremy, I'm not particularly surprised that he's a man that knows how to do that and nail that setting down. It's probably something he was practicing in the sessions before tonight, but if you can use those tools like we were talking about to help you in those situations, that's worth quite a bit of time in a lot of situations. But we'll see if Ted Burns and Derek Ekmanis, how late they run in this race. 35 minutes in, a little bit surprised that we're seeing pit stops this early, but maybe the fuel consumption is really hurting this guys, because we're seeing Thomas Toomey for Virginia also take his pit stop. Looked like I had a couple Porsches in the background as well coming down the pits.
Yeah, maybe like we also talked about before, once one or two come, the rest of them come, try to follow suit. Stay on that close schedule. You see there, Derek Ekmanis continuing to work with Ted Burns, and at this point, just trying to understand when they might come to pit road, and when that lead car might come, what that means for Ekmanis and that 078 machine. But guys, this interval has not grown all night long. I'll tell you what, though, I gotta go hats off to Ted Burns. Has driven with a mirrorful for the last half hour, and I don't think he's missed a bit, guys.
No, I don't think he has, and it's pretty challenging when you've got a car's headlights in the mirror distracting you the entire night. As Derek Ekman is actually looking to the inside here on Sunset Bend. Is he going to be able to get the move done into it? Ted Burns may go for the undercut move here and try to slot it back up the inside, but looks like Derek Ekman is carrying a lot of speed into the corner. Neither of them electing to take the pit stop, so they've got enough fuel to at least do one more lap, it would seem. And on a long track like this, you do have to get it right in terms of that pit strategy, because you can only put in a certain amount of fuel, and you really want to minimize the amount of time you have to spend in the pit lane. So the longer you can go, the better. You don't want to pit too early. And so Derek Ekmanis, we'll see if he was able to save too much fuel while he was following Ted Burns on probably the last 15 laps of the race. So now we see Sean Campbell exiting the pits right now on your screen. He's coming out in 6th place overall in the students category, but reminder, he's the first of these cars to pit. Nate Olson and Alexander Klink staying out for another lap. we'll see what this does and if that's able to slot them in front of Sean Campbell.
Yeah, that University of Illinois machine and the WPI machine, pretty fast right now. Still together, Nate Olson completed the pass, but certainly not out of the draft, just hanging out back there, maybe even saving a little bit of fuel like we talked about Alexander Clank. So we'll see who can spend time in the pits, spend less time in the pits. I will note that Cohen Evans has made his way around Matthew Nordberg, and those guys are still bumper to bumper trying to get themselves sorted out. But wait much longer, and we'll see Jared Kaler, I think, in there. There was a Mercedes following up behind this battle.
Yeah, Cohen Evans still having to contend, though, with Matthew Nordberg. Nordberg under 2/10 as we come through turn 16 right now and onto the back straight. So if Nordberg can get a good exit here, he'll have an opportunity down into Sunset Bend. You see Cohen Evans already diving down the inside. I learned the hard way. If you're going to defend going down to Sunset Bend, you got to defend all the way to the inside wall there. During the last season's fun run, actually, Jared Kaler nailed me down to Sunset Bend there with an inside move that I thought I had covered off, but he found some extra space that I didn't realize was there. So we see a bunch of cars now trying to get into the pit boxes now. So Cohen Evans in. Looks like Matthew Nordberg followed him into that battle that we were just with earlier. And then Derek Ekmanis is actually following these guys, or he might be splitting these guys as well. And then a number of other cars into the pit lanes. I saw Michael Kolich for Angelo State also in.
And Ted Burns, so it'll be exciting to see who comes off first. Looks like Jared Kaler will also bring that Ferrari in for service. So this must be the lap, guys. I think we are at the end of our fuel window, about 40 minutes into this race. That's what we expect. It is Nate Olson right now. Nordberg Campbell. Will be important to see where that machine comes out, that second place machine. Nate Olson and Campbell were racing as well. And then, we'll see if Ted Burns or Derek Ekmanis can come out ahead. In fact, I see Ted Burns about 7/10 back, if that is true. So we will follow these along. And it'll take a couple laps to get these guys sorted out and understand where they slot in. But very exciting to see. This is what we wanted to check on as the development went forward and what these guys' pit strategy consisted of.
And I tell you what, guys, the times on pit lane so similar among the top guys in the student field. Sean D. Campbell, 49.07 seconds on pit lane. Alexander Klink, 49.23. That's how tight it is on pit lane.
Yeah, and a little of that will be the difference in laps that they were able to do. Alexander Klink went one lap longer than Sean, and Nate Olson going a lap longer than Alexander Klink. We'll see if he comes into the pits on this lap. He's going through the last corner right now, so this is going to be the crucial moment to see how long he spends in this pit box and if he can nail Sean Campbell out of the pit lane. It's a tricky pit exit here into turn one. The cars coming up on you have a lot of speed, so even if you exit in front, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to maintain that lead down into turn three, which is really the first corner for you after you exit the pit lane. So Nate Olson in the pits right now. We'll see where he exits relative to Sean Campbell.
Yeah, we're following right now Sean Campbell in that Mercedes for Randolph. See those brake rotors continuing to work hard. I think they will be all night long. He'll come down across the front stretch now. You see Nate Olson pulling out. Guys, I don't think it will be enough. We're going to see right now, this is in the 03 machine. I'm sorry, yeah, the 03, the Mercedes, and the 01 turning in. He knows he's there. He is on the gas, and it looks like he will come out just in front. Properly done down into the corner. Very hard to pass here, so he's got it for now. The University of Illinois. John, I am thoroughly entertained.
That was fantastic driving from Nate Olson, and probably, Jared, I'll need the number for that pit stop time, because if that's what made the difference here, then kudos to Nate Olson for able to save as much fuel as he was able to and come off 2 laps later off the track than Sean Campbell did. That is what made the difference there, but this battle is not over yet, guys.
It is not over yet, yeah, and I'm going to need the number for that crew chief on that call. But no, this battle continues to rage on, and the numbers are just different right now. It is Illinois, then Randolph, then WPI, so much more to go. Jared?
Yeah, and just to tell you just how close it is, 4/100ths of a second separating Nate Olson and Sean D. Campbell's pit time there.
That is very close indeed. I expected to be a little bit further apart. Nate Olson only probably needed to put in I don't know, 9 or 8.5 gallons as compared to probably Sean needing to put in a full 10 or 10.5 gallons into that car. So that would have saved Nate Olson some time in the pit lane. But if you're a little bit too late on the brakes in the pit, or sorry, too early on the brakes in the pit lane, then you'll lose a bit of time in the pits as well. And there's other couple options for you to lose some time there. So a little bit of lap traffic in the way of these guys now. Sean Campbell still trying to follow back underneath. It's very tight now. Nate Olson choosing not to defend into Sunset Bend. Looks like Sean Campbell is on the inside. Guys on their flashers. Now we're on board with, I think this is going to be Sean Campbell on the inside into Sunset Bend. It looks like he may have regained this lead. Nate Olson is tucked back up underneath. So Sean Campbell on the inside, on the last corner, on the most challenging corner of the track, able to get it done. He has positioned his car well so far. Turns in early. Nate Olson trying to take that wide line entrance. I like the strategy, but just didn't quite pay off for Nate Olson, not able to carry enough speed through the corner. But when you've got a car overtaking you like that, it's a guarantee he's going to have the inside line. Nate Olson did the absolute right thing there, sort of give up the position and then set yourself up for the best exit you can through that corner to try to nail him back into turn one, but nothing doing for him there. He's settled for second place at the time being.
Yeah, and that was a tough move there, but I'll tell you what, Campbell wasting no time trying to get back up. A little bit of a defend into the hairpin, and these guys 1, 2, 3 closed up again. Great shot there, as we see just how close these cars are together. Not much margin for error amongst these three. Just a one wheel off or one bumper wrong, and I think we'll see a big shuffle.
A big shuffle indeed, and that's why I mentioned Michael Koholich's name earlier. He's currently 8.8 seconds off of Alexander Klank's bumper, and if anything happens to the top three here, then he's going to pretty much get automatically promoted to a podium spot. So for the Angelo State machine, not all hope is lost yet. 15 minutes left in this race, which is plenty of time for anything to happen, and anybody that's watched race series before will know that to be the truth. But for now, Sean Campbell making those front brake rotors glow on that Mercedes, coming through Bishops down into turn 16, taking a decent amount of curb there on the inside. You can actually hook your inside two tires on the inside of that curb. You have to go on it at a particular angle for you to make it work, but it's actually worth about a tenth or so onto that back straight. You also have to have the damper set up to do that one correctly. So Sean diving back in to get the setup for the corner. Nate Olson hot on his tail right now. If Sean carries too much speed into the corner, Nate could actually slot it back up the inside sort of mid-corner, but he's actually prepared a decent opportunity down into turn one right now.
He has, he's keeping that mirror full, keeping those headlights on, and we'll see if he tries to make a move. I think right now he's just living inside Sean Campbell's head as he tries to go through these portions of the track. First sector, not a ton you can do side by side, as we see. Looks like actually Jeremy Rogers has arrived at this battle and is going to try to get around these guys in a timely manner. Boy, right on time, guys. He's got a 4-second gap. Derek McManus passed Ted Burns, so Derek McManus did stay past Ted Burns there after the pit stop. But yeah, we're going to ride on board with Ted Burns now. Oh, it looks like Ted Burns just got a little bit of that grass right there. And actually looks like, yeah, you see Michael Koholich sliding through right there. But yeah, guys, a story as old as time. Got to stay off the grass.
Got to stay off the grass, and racing in the night does not make that any easier. So Jeremy Rogers able to navigate his way through Alexander Klenk so far. Still 2 cars to clear, but Alexander Klenk was about 9/10 off of Nate Olson before Jeremy Rogers got around him. So far that hasn't hurt him too bad in this battle, but he's really letting Sean Campbell and Nate Olson figure it out amongst themselves. I don't know if Alexander Klenk is just out of pace at this point. Maybe he's worn down his tires too much, or if he's just kind of biding his time right now and waiting to see what these guys do. So Jeremy's going to take the position going into turn 15, and then onto the back straight, he'll probably be able to get Sean Campbell before they get to Sunset Bend, which will be good news for Sean Campbell. That means he'll get a little bit of a help from the tow from the GTE car at the back end of the straight, but for now, he's got a 7/10 gap back to Nate Olson, so he's safe for the time being.
Yeah, and still shuffling around back there. Looks like I see Derek McManus. We see the Illinois machine, but just behind him, actually we're going to ride on board with the Illinois machine. And yeah, John, you mentioned a couple good setups from Olson, but right now just a touch. That traffic, yeah, it didn't help him too much to try and catch Campbell. So you do see that is Derek McManus, the San Diego State driver. getting around, and they're going to try to get around again. Sean Campbell going to give a little flash of the lights. Hello. And going to slide down the inside. A little bit of a late turn, and that will affect the leader just a touch. But fair games all around from these guys. And we talked about it. The multi-class racing, one of the hardest things to do here, especially at this track.
Yeah, especially at this track. And, talking about Derek Ekmanis for the time being, he's about 2.5 seconds off Jeremy Rogers. And we haven't seen Jeremy really challenged yet this race, but that interval has closed down steadily. And Derek Ekmanis, after the pit stops, has found a lot more pace in that Porsche. So we'll be interested to see if that SDSU machine can make its way to the top of the podium before the end of the race. Just under 12 minutes to go left in this race, so maybe a handful of laps yet to come. We'll probably hit lap 30, I would say, right as the hour marker comes to fruition. But yeah, this Porsche doing a great job for the time, 2.2 seconds off the lead.
And closing, as you said, John. Meanwhile, the top 3 GT3 cars try and stay in line. No breathing room there amongst these guys. A little bit further back, you mentioned Koholich, Evans, Nordberg, Nick Beaver making his way. Actually, Nick Beaver past Jared Kaler now. Our Bison from North Dakota State University. Jared Kaler from UNC Charlotte. Thomas Toomey also for Virginia. And then Nathan Kuhl in the GTE, next running from Bemidji State. And then Luis Diaz, FIU, also running for the GT3 machine. So a couple of these guys, and it looks like we're going to see a replay here. This is Alexander Klenk moving past Nate Olson.
That must have been a slowdown penalty for Nate Olson. If you cut too much corner going through Bishop or one of those corners around that area, you will get a slowdown penalty. I bet that's what happened to Nate Olson. I'll probably go and ride on board with him to see exactly which corner he cut and where to see where he got that penalty. But if so, he would have had to have given that position up to Alexander Klenk. And I think it was exiting Bishop. He took a lot of curb and put 4 on the inside, and I bet that's where he got that penalty.
I've done it a few times myself. Yes, accurate. Good call, Mr. Price. And yeah, so we have a little bit of a shuffle here. Campbell, Klenk, Olson. So we'll see if Alexander Klenk now can, maybe he's been saving his equipment, maybe he can catch up to the leading Mercedes. But guys, the story has not changed up front. Sean Campbell still there. It's still quite speedy.
Yeah, it almost looks like he's toying with these guys. He doesn't really have to defend too hard into any corners. He's really able to just almost take it a little bit easy at sometimes. And obviously he was in second out of the pit stops, but then immediately able to get that position back. So Sean Campbell may have some mental capacity on reserve in that car for sort of defending when he needs to. So now we're watching Thomas Toomey and Jared Kaler, 2 very familiar names and faces on the series, going at it right now for 8th and 9th place. Not used to seeing them down there, however. We usually see them fight for podiums, if anything. So Sebring really shaking it up in terms of the running order that we're used to seeing, but Jared Kaler in that Ferrari only 0.4 off going into the hairpin. That number 58 machine, he's been quick at a number of tracks this season. Thomas Toomey struggling a little bit here at Sebring tonight. Normally a very fast driver, but we'll see if this battle has anything in store for us over the next 9 minutes, 8 minutes, make that at the end of this lap.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, tough move there. No time wasted as we saw Thomas Toomey just ride around Jared Kaler. Maybe a little bit of a force into the corner there. But yeah, about 5/10 back and then 5/10 back again to the University of Illinois. And I'll tell you what, not too far away. I'll say that 10 seconds back to Michael Koholich from Angelo State University. I'll tell you what, I am watching Derek McManus in that gap, though. Still about 2.4 seconds, actually about 3.4 now. So, yeah, not too close to that Texas A&M machine. Guys, Jeremy Rogers, again, has it figured out this evening.
Yeah, Jeremy was probably keeping an eye on that relative delta in his black box and seeing where Derek Ekmanis is relative to him. And now he's probably putting the hammer down and extracting all the pace that he's got in that C8R machine. And very fast car around these streets, and so is the Porsche. But man, that A&M car has always been hard to beat and leading that points championship very strongly. But, you know, one thing I'll say about Derek Ekmanis is with Jamie Lawrence down there in 7th, he will again be the highest finishing San Diego State machine. And That's one of the few cases we've actually seen in all the seasons that we've run so far of the CIL where having a teammate is a super helpful thing. We saw it at Baku this past weekend in Formula One where Max Verstappen had that unfortunate tire failure and Sergio Perez for Red Bull came home to take the win instead. And that's the sort of team help that you need. And Derek Ekmanis is there for Jamie Lawrence. And if anything, kind of been carrying that team in the last couple of races and scoring the more points.
Been doing well, both drivers working together to make it a team effort. Continuing to follow along with this battle here, I will say Nate Olson actually a bit further back, so I don't know if he slipped or had another slowdown, but about 2 seconds back according to the scoring tower. He was, even with that slowdown, he was right with these guys, so we'll have to understand that, but it looks like it's going to be Alexander Clank and Sean Campbell for the time being, trying to get this race figured out between themselves. And guys, they've only got about 7 minutes to do it.
Yeah, 7 minutes to do it. I think this is Ted Burns here on the inside for that Wisconsin Ferrari. Making his way, very sharp turning from Ted Burns. That may be an issue for him. Yeah, a big lockup. So trying to make his way around the lap traffic right there did not work for him. Able to stay out of the wall, but he may just had a little bit of over rotation. You know, it's sometimes with turn one, if you turn in at a particular angle or catch a bump at a particular angle, it can really upset the car. I think that may have been what happened to Ted Burns at that point, but he's still got work to do to clear Clank and Campbell before they get down to hairpin. I don't know if he's got the space to do it, but he is looking to the inside. Clank's actually going to defend from him right now and tell him no, and use the opportunity to make an overtake on Sean Campbell, squeezing him right, really parking it on the apex, and able to execute a very expertly maneuvered overtake on Sean Campbell down into the hairpin. I'm going to need to see that one again, Jarrett. That was pretty fantastic. So yeah, late on the brakes and just able to nail Sean Campbell. I don't know if Sean braked too early for that corner or what, but Alexander Clank, that was a very masterful move from him. Ted Burns actually sitting back there letting these guys figure it out amongst themselves, which is very nice of him. He's sitting there in third very comfortably in the alumni standings, and that's probably not going to change in the next couple of laps at the minimum. So being very polite to these leading pair and making his way around him when it's opportune. And I don't even think that's happened yet. He's probably just having a great time sitting in that seat of that Ferrari watching these two guys battle.
Well, he could sell that seat for a lot of money right now. It's a great show. And yeah, I've watched these guys on my monitor during the replay. Still didn't give up. A little bit of defense there. We go with the Wisconsin machine. Wants no part of this. He's trying to get out. Using it as a pick a little bit. Nowhere for for Sean Campbell to go. Now looking on the inside. He's got a little bit of a toe. And it looks like Randolph on the inside, WPI on the outside, smoke around the outside. That looked like a Ferrari, might have been Wisconsin, Ted Burns. Something not right with that machine, but Sean Campbell and Randolph come out on top for this lap, but it's not over. WPI down to the inside into turn one.
WPI on the inside. I'll see if he can make this stick. He's going to carry a lot of apex speed here, but there is grip on the outside and a little bit of a touch between the two. Bit of a reaction from the second Mercedes there, but down into turn three, Alexander Clank is going to make it single wide as Sean Campbell files back in behind. We'll see if he can set up out of turn five and get him down into turn seven. I think Ted Burns there had a bit of a lockup into Sunset Bend, and he started to pull a bit of a Jimmy Johnson. In IMSA qualifying earlier this year, Jimmy had the unfortunate time of backing a DPI machine into that exact wall there, and then he, I think, found that same wall in the race again. Tricky track for sure for even guys as accomplished as Jimmy Johnson, but for Alexander Clank and Sean Campbell, these guys do not care about the challenge these track present them. They are only focused on each other at the moment. So Alexander Clank able to nail that move down into turn one, very expertly moved. That's two moves in a couple of laps that we've seen from Clank, and I think Sean Campbell's got his hands full now, guys.
Sean Campbell does have his hands full because look who has rejoined with that battle. There's a familiar Lamborghini back up there. Nate Olson looking to be around. We talked about the points implications. He knows it. And so he is going to try and see if he can take advantage of this. Maybe waiting to get two free ones here if these two Mercedes get together. But we're going now through Bishop. Take a wide turn back onto the penultimate straightaway. And going through, it's going to be a tow series for these guys. And it looks like WPI in front. Sean Campbell, guys, I dare say he has the advantage of picking which way he wants to go around the corner. And then Nate Olson from the University of Illinois going to choose here down in the corner, hard braking. trying to keep the revs up. You can see his opponent in his rear view mirror there, side by side, out onto the straightaway, coming across the start-finish line. They are bumper to bumper.
Yeah, Sean Campbell actually able to carry a lot of speed through Sunset to set up this move now into turn 1. Alexander Klink's going to give him the spot early, but try to carry that minimum apex speed through and get on the throttle early. Able to do that as well. Back in a good position for turn 3, late on the brakes as compared to Sean Campbell, and they're still side by side through turn 3. Not a great place to go side by side. Nate Olson looking for an opportunity at the time on Sean Campbell, but coming out of turn 5, looks like Alexander Klink able to regain that lead. So great moves up at the front, some expert driving, some real respect between the guys, but Alexander Klink got to defend down into the hairpin. Pretty even on the brakes between the two cars, but Alexander will be a little bit compromised here on the exit. But Sean had a little bit of wheel spin, it looks like, from the blimp view that I'm looking at through it on my monitor, trying to keep an eye on the gaps between these cars. But Nate Olson just going to watch these guys in front for the time being. Sean Campbell looking at the inside, though, for turn 10, very late on the brakes. Alexander has to give him some space there on the inside, but kind of hanging out around the outside, able to hang on for the time being. 2 left corners that are flat out left to go before you get to turn 13. Sean in front down to turn 13, late on the brakes. He's going to have his position before they get to Bishops, but still trying to make it too wide. These guys are having a ball right now.
They are, and they are neck and neck. A lot of respect from these drivers, and this is what we enjoy seeing. Probably 2 or 3 laps to go in this race. You can see up on the top of the tower. We're going to be coming up to that InnoVetted white flag very soon as Jeremy Rogers runs his fastest lap of the race. But maybe a bit of an off track. Will it have an effect for these guys? Nate Olson now with a tow. He's going to be looking at the back of Alexander Klink's WPI machine. Going down into the final turn, Sunset Bend. He looks. Will he make a move? No, it'll be defended, covered down into the inside around the bumpiest turn on this track. Drivers struggling for grip, and all 3 will come off to the front, just staying off that grass across the start-finish line.
Yeah, so a little bit of gap between these cars now. This was probably the white flag lap, I would imagine, the InnoVetted white flag lap. And yes, I'm getting confirmation. Yes, it is. So 1 lap to go, only about 14 corners or so remaining for Alexander Klink to retake that position from Sean Campbell. But a little bit of space in between the cars, about a car's width. Geez, Klink is really pushing that car pretty hard, taking a lot of curb there in turn 3 and turn 4, trying to use all the track that he can to find any advantage possible over Campbell. But I don't know, guys. It's a bit of a gap now as we're hitting the closing stages.
Campbell has picked the right time to take that Randolph machine, put it up a little bit further, but you can be sure that Klink is waiting until that final turn. That's where these guys have been watching their habits. They've been watching their tendencies, understanding where each driver turns in, braking points, how they choose to defend, what their primary and alternate strategies are for getting around. They know each other pretty well. They've been doing it for 60 minutes here this evening. They're going to do it for about another minute left in this lap. We are on the InnoVetted white flag, so coming through now, just trying to size each other up, and Nate Olson still watching this thing.
Yeah, Nate Olson, I don't know. He's a little bit far back, especially as we're coming into Bishops at this point. So really, Alexander's got to be thinking about turn 16. Very late on the brakes into this tight right-hander, down to 3rd gear probably for that one. And this is the crucial corner. Can he nail this exit? Getting onto the back stretch and trying to get some space on Sean Campbell. But Sean also nailing the exit. So I don't think it's going to work out for Alexander Klink. He's got 1 opportunity, but it's pretty far away into Sunset Bend. He's got about 3 car lengths to close in the braking zone if he's going to make an attempt here. And he is making an attempt on the inside, having to back out of it a little bit there right at the apex, but closed a lot of space there on the entry to the corner. And it's going to be very tight as we cross the line here at Sebring right about now. But it is Sean Campbell who will take home the win here at the InnoVetted checkered flag, and Alexander Klink in second with the Illinois machine, driven by Nate Olson in third. Josh, Jarrett, what a finish to that race.
Absolutely, what a finish, and you can see your GTE race remains as expected, but I wasn't sure what to expect until we were well across the line. We did see Nate Olson retain that 3rd place position, despite, I think, John grabbing a little bit of grass at the end. You can see some celebratory headlights and burnouts from the drivers. But wow, John, yeah, coming out of turn 16, it was a little bit far back. I wondered if Clank would try and slot in there, but you know when you take that extra low line, that wall kind of juts out, and then that turn is just tighter. So you have to give up a little bit of speed sometimes. So well run from Sean Campbell from Randolph. Seriously good race. And again, respectful driving from both drivers. You'd love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely love to see it. So your top 10 finishers as they are right now, and we'll just go through all the alumni since I think there's 7 or 8 of them that really finished this race. And so Jeremy Rogers coming away with your win for A&M up there in the alumni category. Derek McManus for San Diego State, 5 seconds back in second place. Rahul Bolaneni for Michigan Tech in third place. And Ted Burns for Wisconsin in fourth. Alexandre Puccini in fifth, Jamie Lawrence, the second San Diego State car, in sixth, Nick Trollman in seventh, Carl Lemke in 10th, which would be eighth overall eighth in class for St. Louis University, and then Nathan Kuhl for Bemidji State in 18th. But on to the students, Sean Campbell taking home the win for that group in 8th overall for Randolph Community College. Alexander Clank, WPI, in second place, just a couple tenths back, I would guess. And then Nate Olson in third for the students for Illinois. And then 12th overall, Michael Kolish for Angelo State. Couldn't quite close the gap there at the end. Cohen Evanson 13th, Matthew Norberg 14th, Thomas Toomey for Virginia in 15th, and Jared Kaler in 16th. So that battle staying as it was on track. Nick Beaver 17th, Luis Diaz in 19th for FIU, Alex Jensen Embry-Riddle College for 20th position tonight. Sam Ross Lansky, the second Wisconsin car in the field, 21st. Scott Ratliff, Sean Valandia, Esteban Munoz, and Gavin Keithley all retiring early from this race, and that will round out your field.
Boy, what a great race that was to call. First up into the booth is Jeremy Rogers, the alumni winner here tonight. And Jeremy, what a race it was from you. Quietly again, just kind of hanging out at the front. Talk us through Sebring. It looked quite bumpy there. How is it in the GTE field?
Yeah, I mean, I never really got the front entirely hooked up. It's one of those deals that it looked a lot easier than it actually was. There was a couple times where I nearly spun myself out and just had to kind of hang on and get it back.
Yeah, well, you certainly managed that car pretty well over the night. I looked at Derek McManus about, I don't know, right around the pit stop, and he was getting pretty close to you. Were you kind of concerned about seeing that Porsche creep up on you?
Yeah, that was a mistake on pit strategy on my part. I pitted to try and undercut a group of GT3s so that I wouldn't have to lose time in them, but I dropped myself right behind a GTE, so it took me a while to get around them. That was most of that time was losing there. Also, my headset started to go out during that time. It recovered, thankfully, but I couldn't hear my tires. That was cool.
That's a bold moment, but congrats on the win. We saw you a couple times on board and caught you just before you were coming to pit road, playing with your wheel settings, maybe an engine map or brake bias setting. Tell us what you were doing, what your intent was, and maybe we can learn a little bit.
That was actually just making sure that all my settings were correct. On my wheel here, I've got a knob that just slips through the iRacing settings, and I was just making sure I had my fuel and tires correct. I really overfueled myself. Race Labs is pretty conservative, and I added 3 laps on top of that.
Well, it didn't look like it hurt you that much. Coming away first overall and first in the alumni, Jeremy Rogers. Anyone you want to give a shout out to before we send you to the InnoVetted Labs victory lane?
Thank you to you guys for doing the broadcast, and also thanks a bunch to John Price and Theodore Burns for all the setup advice throughout the season. I've learned so much. Thank you so much, guys. I'll try and pay it forward.
Yeah, no problem, man. You have yourself a good night, and well done again on this win.
Guys, cheers.
So Jeremy Rogers, the alumni winner here tonight. First overall, made it look easy. We saw Derek McManus climb up, close that gap quite a bit, and then he just turned it on right there. The 112 for Texas A&M, no slouch to speed, and he took it to Sebring here tonight. Next up into the booth is our winner in the student category, and he had to work for it. John Campbell joining us now, and Sean, take us through those last couple laps.
I thought I don't know how to take you through because I'm about as amazed as you guys are.
Yeah, so talk to me as you came out of that pit lane. You saw Nate Olson just in front and kind of able to just pip you as he exited the pits. So, what were your thoughts there? Do you think that you would be able to get him so soon on just that next lap?
I didn't think I was going to get him that soon, but I definitely thought that it was going to be a good race when he came out in front of me. I thought it was going to get really good, and it did.
And it did is correct. I think Twitch chat was enjoying the show that you guys put on there. You and I talked a little bit about race strategy. You mentioned a little bit of your thoughts at the beginning. I won't give away all your secrets, but walk us through the strategy that you settled on. How did you attack? After qualifying, you qualified well. How did you attack the first lap? What were your plans? What was your plan if you went into turn one in first or second? And at what point did it all go out the window when you had to get around that lead machine?
I didn't. I don't know. To be honest, we started at the start. I was just trying to drive a wave, and then I realized it's an hour-long race. You have to fuel save a little bit to get an advantage in the pit stop. And I think Nate must have either started earlier or took a little bit less fuel because he did it perfectly. He came out right in front of me. I think plan was just to hopefully defend for long enough and keep the tires in check because at the end they did start to go.
Yeah, we know the Mercedes doesn't always save tires, and we did see that Olsen from Illinois was behind in the draft, saving fuel a little bit. But awesome race and really exciting, and a lot of different strategies from you guys, Jarrett.
Yeah, Sean, great race again. Wonderful to watch from up here in the booth. Anyone you want to give a shout out to before we send you to the InnoVetted Labs victory lane?
Again, shout out to Michael and Max because they let me know that this league's a thing. And I think that's it.
All right. Well, fantastic race. Congrats again. And we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. See you.
So that was Sean Campbell, your winner here in the student category. And it's kind of cool, calm, and collected. And that's what you need to be with Alexander Klink filling your mirror up like that, guys.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear from Klink here in a minute to see how riled up he is. We've known him to be the cool, calm, and collected one, so we'll see how he is after this race. I bet he was sweating at least a little bit in that cockpit.
So he is going to join us up here in the booth. Alexander Klink from WPI coming away second. And Alex, we saw a great battle between you and Sean Campbell there at the end. Take us through those couple laps. Where did you think you had him? Did you have a specific move you were trying to make there at the end?
Yeah, I think unfortunately I had him in all the wrong spots in a way. Felt better on the brakes at that point, better, right out of the corner maybe, but I don't know why. Maybe he had a click less wing or something. I just really didn't have straight line speed to get, really up there. And obviously I, led for a bit, but he came right back at me. So yeah, it was really great though. It was I'm pretty exhausted after that one. It was really challenging, and I think really great racing though, really fair side by side, leaving the room, but just the room, one car and nothing more.
Yeah, I think you put on an absolute masterclass. I'm going to steal from the Twitch chat for that one. It was fantastic watching you guys battle it out. There is one move in particular that I'm very interested in hearing what your call was on that one. I think Ted Burns was right behind you going down into the hairpin, and you duck out of the draft and sort of just get Campbell on the brakes into the corner with Ted Burns still behind you. Did you try to defend from Ted and that opportunity just sort of present itself to you? Did you plan that one?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a 2-for-1, right? And so, like I was saying, I was better on the brakes, and I think he was maybe a little bit in the mirrors looking at Ted, and so I was able to get by. And I was sort of hoping that, if I was ahead, that Ted might, not on purpose, of course, but just by however he passed him, give me a little bit of a gap and some breathing room.
Right. Well, you absolutely expertly executed that. Congratulations on the second place finish. Anybody you want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Shout out to Sean and Nate for a great race. That was really memorable. I'm not going to forget that one in a hurry. yeah, thanks to you guys, of course, and oof, I'm gonna go lay down now, I think.
Well, I think you certainly earned it. I don't think we will forget that battle anytime soon either. So, Alexander Clank, well done tonight. Congratulations on your second place, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
So Alex Clink right there, and you heard just the exhaustion of an hour of battling. And really, we saw these guys battle from really the green flag. We saw it up until the pit stop. We saw it after the pit stop all night long. And Alex Clink right there, you heard it from him. I'm not going to forget this one anytime soon. And that is just awesome to hear here in the CIL.
Yeah, you mentioned it doing it for an hour. The physical tax and the mental tax on these drivers, trying to make it work. There was really no reprieve, I think, for our top three for about an hour. So, yeah, I don't blame them. Equal parts, perhaps bummed. So close, and then exhausted. But phenomenal run from those guys.
And speaking of so close, the final of our top three students joining us now, Nate Olson from the University of Illinois, joining us now in the booth. And Nate, you had probably the best seat in the house for what was an incredible battle. Did you have any point in the track where you thought I can stick my nose in there and maybe make this a 3-wide battle or a 3-car battle?
Yeah, no, I kind of fell back there, and thanks to their side-by-side action, I was able to catch back up. I mean, going into Sunset as well as Turn 1, I feel like are good passing opportunities that I tried to take advantage of, but especially when I went side by side with Alex a few of those times, he was so good at getting me down the next straight. So getting a good exit is really hard here, especially with the draft. So I feel like those were the two corners where it was possible, but still very difficult.
Yeah, so walk us through a move where you guys were battling, I think, in the middle of the race, and it was the three of you. And there was a lap, or sorry, I think a GTE machine trying to make their way, maybe Jamie Lawrence and the Porsche trying to make their way through and down into the hairpin. You actually moved to the right rather than hold that line into the hairpin. Walk us through that. What was the advantage there rather than holding your line, letting the GTE slide by the inside?
Yeah, I guess it was a few bad experiences I've had, especially in the GT3 here, especially when LMP2 is around. And, if you make a move slightly too late, crossing back over the track, sometimes, that can trip the person up behind you. It's kind of like, when you meet in a hallway and you both step in each other's way. And that's why I was trying to avoid there. I figured I could just stay to the right since that's kind of where the corner exit was, give coast a bit and just let them kind of pass me on the left.
Definitely. Well, it ended up working out great for you, coming away P3, and you're still chasing down Alex Klink in the points. So as we start to think about the following week, Interlagos in 2 weeks' time, do you have any insight into Interlagos? Is that a track you're going to need to practice, or is that a track you feel quite at home with?
To be honest, I've never actually raced there, but hopefully I'll be able to make it. I'm road tripping back from the Formula SAE competition in Vegas, and it will be questionable if I can make it. That's why I was pushing really hard tonight, knowing that I had the drop week coming up. But if I am able to make it, I'm definitely going to need to put in some practice before I leave for Vegas.
Well, we'll hope to see you on track so we can see another battle like this again. Nate Olson, third place finish. Anyone you want to give a shout out to here on the broadcast before we send you on your way?
Sure, I'd like to, shout out all you guys that, run this league. It's really well organized to begin with, and then the broadcasts you put on are really high quality, and I know that's not easy to do, so I really appreciate all the hard work you guys put in to make this possible.
Well, it's quite easy when you put a battle like that in front of us here tonight. So, Nate Olson, congrats again on that podium, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Sounds good. See you guys.
So, that's Nate Olson coming away third here tonight. And, guys, now we can all take a deep breath and relax after that one because, boy, that was a wild finish there at the end.
Yeah, wild finish for sure. I'm looking at the chat right now. Looks like a couple guys excited for Interlagos next week as well. But yeah, just wrapping up today. watching these guys battle there at the end, there is few things on earth, for me at least, that are as nice as watching something like that. You don't get a lot of that in stuff like Formula One or IndyCar these days, where you get to watch a car go side by side with another for over half a lap in some instances and make multiple moves over the course of a lap. So watching it happen, watching it unfold on track right in front of you, and watching these guys fight for these points in the school's battle is pretty empowering. I think a lot of guys really enjoy representing their schools here, and Alexander Klenk trying to put on a last hurrah and right as he graduates from WPI University. So again, congrats to Alexander Klenk putting on an absolute masterclass. But Sean Campbell owned it tonight. Josh,
He did own it, is correct. And with that second place finish for Alexander Klenk, that'll score 42 points, 39 points for the Illinois machine. Stretching that gap a little bit, 213 to 206 points in the championship run going into Interlagos. And you heard it, they will have a drop week to play with should anything come up. So really, really exciting run from these guys. And I'll tell you what, looking at the top two, WPI and Illinois, 3 wins between them. So talking about drop weeks, they're going to have to drop something like a third place finish or a second place finish. It's a shame. It's a real shame. So very exciting from these guys. I mean, we saw it tonight, John, and I think I'm out of adjectives, nouns, and verbs. They did it. They raced. They fought, and Sean Campbell and Randolph came out on top. And I think I might have to go lay down after this one as well. I might be just as beat up here in the booth some of these drivers were in the car.
Well, lucky for you, Josh, you can get a thesaurus from nextbookit.com, and we'll hear from these guys and get some final thoughts from here at Sebring here in a moment. So NextBookIt connects book lovers with each other to buy and sell all books from textbook to fiction, dictionaries, thesauruses, and encyclopedias all alike, and everything in between. For every account that is created with the code CIL 2021, that's CIL 2021, NextBookIt is going to put $5 toward the CIL Scholarship Fund, and that gets directly redistributed to the drivers in need. So if drivers need a trek, want to try out a different car, they come to us, and NextBookIt provides the rest. So NextBookIt doing a great thing for the CIL in Season 2 here, and great that we have battles on track like this that they're supporting. And guys, also a couple graduates here that they're supporting. You see them on your screen now. And John, how cool is it that we see a couple of these guys on track, especially Alexander Klenk coming away second place here today with that aerospace engineer trying to put that to work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the Collegiate iRacing League for a reason. This thing does not exist without these students coming in here week in and week out and racing hard, just like Alexander Klenk and the others on your screen. And so big shout out to these guys. Congratulations on the graduation. You've worked hard, both on track and off track, to make it to this point. So very well done from everybody there. Cody Fadenhauer for VCU, Alexander Klenk from WPI, Colby Sherwood from The Ohio State, Avery Walker for Virginia, and Maximilian Bowie for USC. All very well accomplished engineers, it would seem. And good luck in the future, especially in the job hunt from this point forward. But we'll get your final results here in just a moment.
So we're looking at the final results on your screen now. John went through them, but just to recap one more time, Jeremy Rogers winning the alumni category, Derek McManus right behind him, and quietly Rahul Bolanani from Michigan Tech coming away third in the alumni category. I don't think we spoke his name all night, but he was able to keep it straight, keep it on track, coming away third. Ted Burns in fourth, Alexandre Pacini in fifth, Jamie Lawrence quietly up to sixth, Nick Trollman in seventh. In the alumni category, Carl M. Cool 8th and Nathan Cool in 9th. Those GTEs, those student drivers, Sean D. Campbell coming away 8th overall. First in the student category, Alexander Klenk 9th overall. Nate Olson, 11th overall. Michael Koholich, quietly 4th in the student category. So good run for him as well. You heard his name mentioned over the course of the night. And Cohen Evans able to hold off Matthew Nordberg. We peeked in on that battle a couple of times, and we saw Evans make a move, and he was able to keep Nordberg behind him for the rest of the night. Thomas Toomey falls back to 15th. I think I expected Toomey to be a little further up. Had a couple instances of peril that he was able to survive, but the 66 machine coming away 15th overall here tonight. Jerry Kaler from UNC Charlotte, a tough night for that team. They come away 16th, and Nick Beaver from NDSU all the way back there in 17th. The rest of your grid, or your finishing order, excuse me. Luis Diaz from FIU back there in 19th. Alex Jensen coming home in 20th overall. Sam Ross Lansky back in 21st. Scott Ratliff 22nd. Sean Valendia 23rd. Esteban Moonrose in 24th. And Gavin Keithley rounding out your field in 25th. So, guys, as we wrap this one on up from Sebring, I think that's got to be up there for one of the best races I think we've witnessed. 3 cars all battling for the finish there, and we didn't see anyone spin. We really saw no mistakes as well. Maybe a minor hiccup by Klink when he let Campbell by there with 1 to go, but boy, was that a fun one.
It was for real, and man, there was a couple moves. We talked about the defense into hairpin, both from Nate Olson with the passing GTEs, and then trying to defend the GTE and take that positioning and make that opportunity clank. And I did notice that, and John, you called it with the call in real time, that Clank had a bit of a pinch there, had pushed Campbell a little bit wide. Was it in a gray area? Was that all fair play?
I think it's fair play. There was no contact between the 2 cars. As long as neither of them touch a wall or touch each other, I think that's all fair play. And I didn't hear any complaints from either of the 2 drivers tonight, so I think they would agree with that. But yeah, just an absolute masterclass. I may go back and watch both their onboards from this one, and maybe even clip them and throw it on YouTube as a perfect example of how to race very tightly with another car all race long and not make contact. I think these guys were absolutely perfect in every single way tonight. And even in the pit stops, Nate Olson coming out of the pit stop with that overcut really surprised me that was so powerful to put him up into the lead for that moment before I think he had that off track that set him back in the pack a little bit further. But yeah, just an absolute masterclass up there.
Well, if you enjoyed this racing, and I got to say, it's probably pretty hard not to, we're back again in 2 weeks, same time, same place, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we go down to Brazil for Interlagos and the championship. And keep in mind just how close we mentioned it was between WPI and Illinois. And now Sean D. Campbell as well. So with the drop weeks, everything's going to shake on up, and drivers cannot afford to make a mistake. If you want more CIL action, we return next week as we head to Brooklyn, Michigan for the race at MIS. That's going to be the Cup cars out there on the oval circuit. So 2 miles around Michigan International Speedway. Again, same time, same place, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for one last time for us up in the booth, myself, Josh, and John, and all of our supporters, including all of you guys watching at home, thank you so much for tuning on in tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you again next week.